Okay, just waiting for Nadia to come back.
I'm here.
You're back.
I'm back.
Okay. So yeah, man, what you were saying, right? Because it kind of you kind of summarized a lot of the comments that was going on in the last video, the last live,
Okay.
whereby my cousin who's a trainee counselor, she says, well, either way, when it comes to trauma, you're supposed to kind of wait like 6 months before you seek help. So in the meantime, yeah. Clinical help, that is, but in the meantime, this is ideal time for, say, youth work to kick in. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And through youth work and those established relationships and that sort of style, that is a key way to actually engage with young people and get them what I like to call therapy ready. Get them ready for therapy because they probably would benefit from the right time. And it's, again, like somebody else mentioned about culturally competent. You mentioned before about trusted relationships. You also It's
Mhm.
also about safety
Yeah.
and them actually feeling that they feel safe enough to be able to engage. Do you know what I mean? Uh, so yeah, it's massive. It's massive. But
It it is, and it needs to be like right. So I know within your PSHE lessons, and again, I don't like. Oh, I'm not here. I don't want to sound like I'm being negative with schools because I'm a teacher. I work in schools. Like it's not about that. What I'm saying is I know that the reason that I went into supply instead of working directly for a school was because there are a lot of politics in how we are holistically working with young people, and we might tackle mental health. We might look at it in mental health week or world mental health day, and but there's people that are suffering every single day.
yes, all day,
how
every.
are we how are we talking to these young people about trauma and how to unpick it? How are we saying to them, right, okay, well, this is what trauma is. We're adults here, and some of the stuff that I've learned about trauma in the past, like, do you know what I mean, with looking at the research, I know that we as adults have never had that. We as adults have quite possibly never had someone actually sit us down and say, listen, if you have experienced something that has made you feel lost or ashamed or judged or powerless, then the chances are you may have experienced trauma. And if you have experienced trauma, then these are some of the things that we would advise that you do. And kind of trying to create, it's all about the safe spaces. It's all about the spaces that, and I think, like, obviously the reason I do look at schools is because a lot of young people will have experienced the trauma before they're 18, before they're 16, within the secondary age bracket, the amount of trauma that young people are experiencing, and to them they don't even see it as trauma. Like, if we look at child exploitation, I know young people that come to me and tell me, miss, what's the issue with county lines, or what's the issue with me doing oh, it's gone out my head now, like certain illegal activities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the issue? I'm getting paid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So they don't see that what's happening is that they're being exploited. So, and
And
it's, we need to kind of educate them more. We need to trust young people. They listen, young people have got, oh my God, so much potential. And I say it to them all the time, regardless of what they've been through, where they've been, what they've done. That each and every single young person has potential, and it's about them being able to recognize that. And I would love for this conversation that me and you are having, I would love for it to be a young person that's leading that. I would love for it. And I think I liked what your friend was saying last week about sex education and getting young people to lead on it,
yes,
because young people listen to young people. Listen, I know I look like I'm 16, I love it, yes, however, I'm not a young person, I'm an adult, and that's why I have a youth board for Mind Our Mentalities, and I have youth execs that I'll go to and I'll be like, yeah, I'm thinking, let's do this, this and this, and they'll be like, nah, sorry, that's not relevant to us. That's not going to work for young people. What you've got to try and do is this, this, and this. And it's we need more young people that are trained. Like mental health, we're looking at getting more young people that are becoming mental health warriors in their schools and things like that. But what about the first aid training? What about the parents that are trained? So before all this COVID happened, I was booked into my mental health first aid instructors course. So that, and the idea is that I want to get that instructor course so that I can actually go out there, and parents that may need it or children that may need it can be trained on recognizing some of these signs, because you can unpick trauma within that, and it might not actually center around trauma, but what it does do is look around some of the mental health issues that you get as a result, or you can get as a result of a traumatic experience, like anxiety and depression. We also talk about, and this is another one, people that experience trauma, if it's unpicked, they could end up having a personality disorder. So they could end up having something like dissociative disorder, where it's like, right, okay, because they've just completely wiped that memory clean, they don't want to know what happened, they don't even want to process it, they start to become a different personality. They start to become a different person, because that person that experienced that trauma, I'm not going there. That happened to somebody else. So let me just put that over that side, and this is me. And again, within a young person, even within adults, it's not healthy. It's not healthy, because all of that takes a toll on our mental and our emotional and our physical well-being. Because this is it all, ultimately, all trauma, I would argue, is physical, even if it is not a physical injury that has been caused. So even if it's not that I broke my leg, if I experience psychological trauma, it will physically impact me. Yes. Whether that be through me not being able to sleep properly and becoming an insomniac, whether it be through me inheriting a flinch because I'm scared of certain situations, like whatever it might be, it all manifests physically, and that's why we have to look after our emotions and our mental health, and it has to be just as important. We have to have more mental health first aid trained people in schools, because then they can recognize when you've got that young person that's disengaged from the conversation or the learning, that looks like they're constantly tired, instead of sitting there and like thinking, you know what, they were probably just sitting up and playing PlayStation. Yeah, what if they were? But what if they were doing that because they're trying to escape something? Absolutely. What if all these things that you think they're doing, yeah, they might be smoking weed, but what, I'm not saying that's all right, but what if they're doing that because they have experienced trauma, it hasn't been unpicked, they do not have an adult that has recognized what they're going through? What then? What happens to them? They grow up, and because of their anger, not me being stereotypical, but this is me throwing it out there, they grow up, and because they haven't processed it, and they're smoking weed, and again, that can lead to other mental health issues. So then imagine this young person becomes so angry and so disengaged with the world, or ends up having a personality disorder that means that they're not actually in control of their functions. And then what happens? They go off on one in a club one day. They go off, like they turn around and they start acting violent or aggressive towards their partner, or do you know what I mean, their parents, or whatever it might be, and then that young person gets locked up. Are they going to get the mental health support they need when they're in prison? No. So it's horrible.
I know. You hit a spot for me, because for me, boy, if we look at perpetrators of like youth violence, yeah, the amount of perpetrators of youth violence, right, who have experienced some significant trauma, right, who have then gone on to create these commit these crimes, is unbelievable. If we unpick the history, it's crazy. There's this one young man I know that you know what I mean, he got stabbed twice as a teenager. Yeah, survived. So you know what? it's part of his, you know what I mean? It's time to go out the house. His keys, phone, scissors. Yeah, yeah, can't really do me for scissors, you know, but or a knife or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. But they're carrying stuff because the fact is
Yeah.
that trauma impacts on our feelings of safety. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Definitely,
You
definitely.
know,
And even in the sense that it becomes this sense of, you know what, I've been stabbed and I didn't die.
mm,
So now there's this sense of whatever, this nihilistic attitude that we might speak about, this attitude that I'm probably going to die before I'm 18. And what the area I live in, the environment I live in, the upbringing I'm coming from, the lack of support, the lack of prospects that I have, who cares? If I'm going to die, I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm going to go out knowing that I was big and bad. Like, oh, yeah, it's
yeah,
just,
and you're right, because you know what, there is those elements whereby, you know what, don't matter, man. You know what, people die every day. People, this is just normal. It's standard, isn't it? You know, I think this is where we kind of start looking around the networking of trauma. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what's crazy, you know, everything seems to go on the video lately, and the networking of trauma is massive, whereby sometimes we may get some traumatic news, or a video or something, and it's then shared, and our young people are seeing it, and the impact of that is massive, and they can think, you know what, actually that just happened down the road from me, you know, and I need to go past there to go to school. I need to go past there to go home. You know, what can I do to keep myself safe? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the networking of trauma is massive, because trauma for me doesn't stay in one sort of place. Since doing a recent talk, I was talking about how, you know, if trauma was to be looked at, how Britain should have dealt with this pandemic. Yeah, it should have
Mm-hmm.
been it should have been contact tracing of trauma. Do you know what I mean? So let's just work
Mm.
out in terms of the networks around who's impacted. So okay, so that the lad goes to this school, goes to this club, comes from this area, is on that estate. All right, calm. We need to know what's going on in terms of who's impacted, so it's not just the families alone, because there's every chance that without dealing with that, this can lead to further incidences and further situations. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I've said. If we want to become trauma-informed practitioners, we need to know what's going on in the communities that the children we're working with come from. So I can sit here and talk about Handsworth all day. Having said that, I'm not out on road the way that I used to be when I was 16. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know everything that's going out or going on in Handsworth.
Yeah.
However, if I work in a school in Bordsley Green, I need to know what's going on in that community. I need to know, so that when those young people are coming into my presence within that school. So I work with, like, the last school I was at, I worked within the exclusion unit. So it's basically young people that are at the heart of a lot of this stuff, that get kicked out of their class because they don't care. They're at school to be with their friends and to talk about what happened the day before. I just thought about it now. I had a young person, thinking about a young person that lost their mum to suicide. Not processed. Now out there on road dealing. What support did he get? I've got another young man that constantly getting in trouble, but hear what? His cousin that he sees as a big brother got stabbed last year. Did he get any support? No, he didn't. So they start dealing with it themselves, and their way of dealing with it is that kind of rose-tinted glasses. You know what? I'm going out there. If people want to go on like this, if people want to mash up my people, then I'm going to go out there. If this young man whose mom committed suicide and he hasn't processed that, when he gets older, it is going to affect him a lot more. But right now, his way of processing it is, I'm just going to numb it. I'm just going to numb it out, because does it really matter? Because my mom obviously didn't care enough about me. Do you know what I mean? And I know I'm going in. This is me. I go right in there. It's not about me pussyfooting around things. But if he's sitting there and thinking, well, hold on a minute, my mum committed suicide. So she don't really care about me, because if she cared about me, why would she have done that? I don't even know why she committed suicide. I don't know, because my mom wouldn't have spoken to me about her feelings or anything she was going on with. You know what I mean? I taught from experience. My mental health issues, I believe, have genetically kind of, some of that has passed through to me. Some of it comes from trauma. Some of it comes from experiences and environments. But it was never unpicked with me. And that's why, to me, I have to talk about it with my son. I have to, because if he walks in and he sees me crying and unable to actually function, then yeah, I know we might look and think he's 7 years old, but if he sees that, I have to ensure that I give him a space to talk about it, so that he knows, because the first thing children will do is think it's their fault. The first thing a child will do is think that mummy's upset because of me. They take things quite personally in that sense. Mummy is crying because of me. I've done something. And then they'll start processing, right, what have I done today? Oh yeah, you know what, hear what? I answered mummy back when she said this. I've probably upset her.
And the kids would interpret it their way. So often what ends up happening as a result is a miscommunication. Yeah. If you never give them that space, right, it's a miscommunication. And there then becomes layers of guilt that kind of take place. Do you know what I mean? With parents, there's parental guilt and all sorts. And it's difficult because obviously it impacts on your parenting capacity, your ability to parent. And I'm talking from the heart. I'm talking from experience right now. Do you know what I mean? I've never stood shy from that. But this is why, for me, having this subject around trauma-informed parenting is massive. It's massive, and it was so necessary.
And I've got to go back to saying that if you are a parent out there that is experiencing trauma or has experienced trauma or is not coping well or has a mental health issue, that is not saying that you are a bad parent. You are not a bad parent, because we're people first, and then we have kids, and then it's like, oh crap, I've got to watch what's happening to me, and I've got to kind of enlight the spirit of this young person that God has gifted to me as well. And sometimes it's hard, but I think the more you build that relationship with your child, that it's this is what's happening, this is my personal experience, and I want you to feel like you can come and talk to me about anything. And my son gets frustrated because sometimes he comes and talks to me about something, and I'm like, listen, you did, and he'll be like, Mom, like, why can't you just listen to me? Like, and if I don't listen to what he's saying, I shared with you the other day that my son was saying to me, he just wants me to play with him. I say to him, why you been misbehaving lately? And he's like, well, Mom, I like it when you play with me. And sometimes that's it. So if you have a conversation with your child and they feel like they can share their feelings without you jumping on their neck, then that is us becoming more informed parents. That's us creating safe space. If we look at that article, I got like highlighted a quote from that, networking trauma article you sent me. So it basically says, if families, schools or communities cannot provide soothing connections to heal the trauma, the child enters adolescence and adulthood with unresolved chronic trauma. This leaves them extremely vulnerable to exploitation and with limited prospects for learning or finding a lifeline to a better future. That is deep. That is a lot of young people that I can see on a regular basis. Is horrible to think about it. Yes, and Craig agrees, because I know this is another thing that me and Craig have spoken about, unpicking this trauma and this network. If our kids can't come and talk to us, if our kids do not feel safe with us, then they're going to go and find someone else. And as we've already pointed out, these fiends out there, really, when you think about, I teach religious studies, and you think about why is there evil, and I do understand. But sometimes you're like, yo, this kind of evil is next level. These people that are taking advantage. But hear what? You know, these people that are exploiting children, I bet you they've probably experienced trauma, and that trauma wasn't expressed. I'm not saying they've got an excuse, but this is it. We've got this vicious cycle. If we are not getting into a habit of unpicking trauma with young people, then they are going to become some of the young people that turn into adults that are going to take advantage of other people.
Yeah.
Craig, why you gotta hit me with a question like that, man? How do we help young people and their families whilst ensuring we are economically stable? Oh God, you know what? I feel like, and I get my friend who's, I think she's still in on the live. She's like one of my co-directors, and she always cusses me about being business minded. And I was talking to you again, Darren, about this. And sometimes when we do something that we're passionate about, we kind of we do a lot of free stuff, and we don't do it because we don't think we can earn the money out there. We do it because it's what we get that buzz out of. I know that. I know, Craig, and I know that you're going to tell me off, and Sangeeta's told me off, and Bear People. So I'm not looking to work for free.
No.
But I believe what parents need to do, like I said, it's training. So based on some of the information we've discussed here, then it's trauma-informed workshops for parents in communities that traumatic environments are... It's everywhere. Young people are seeing their trauma everywhere. So these parents need something like this, because we can all go home. Everyone here that's watching this, we can go and we can kind of put into practice some of the things we've learned and unpick our trauma. But then we need to train other parents. Craig, listen. I'm getting distracted by Craig. Right, where are we? But then our children get affected, and we by default do the same. The parents we are working with. No, and this is why this is a big thing. So I think, Craig, you missed the bit earlier. Sorry, Darren, we've got a bit of a surprise guest.
Hello, special guest.
He's done well to stay out of the conversation. I did tell him an hour, so we've done an hour and 20 minutes, which is great. But in response to that, Craig, this is why we as adults need to get a better balance between the work that we do. Now, I don't even want to imagine the secondary trauma that you experience as a worker, because some of the things that I know, or I can only imagine that Craig is dealing with on a regular basis, that is, he's having to help and support other people with trauma. And what the advice normally is that if we are working with vulnerable young people and adults, then we ourselves need to make sure that we are getting either supervision or we're getting support for our own mental health issue.
I don't think there's such a thing.
Oh, bless. Oh,
I know.
Craig. I just want to give you a virtual hug, Craig.
And it's true. We do need clinical supervision, right?
We do.
The vicarious trauma is something that is very real, Nick. I agree. But also, I think in lockdown, it's further compounded the reality of some of our self-care routines that can't take place. So I remember my sister-in-law nearly bawling when we were sat in the house the day when that Boris, locked down the country and said that we are locked the gym. She's like, oh my God, the gym! No way! No. So you know what? We haven't got that outlet. Man, you know, sometimes it's very, very difficult to kind of manage this on lockdown. Yeah. That's why our young people are really, really feeling it. And us parents, because usually we can have a breather. You know what I mean? Between 9 till 3, schools blessed. Schools got them. Right? You know what I mean? But it's just
this. Listen, you know, this is a touchy subject for me, because I need me space. I need to get out there. However, because I haven't got my self-care, would normally mean I have my sister's an absolute angel, and she, like, if I'm having a bad day, or if I'm having a day where, you know what, I just need some me time. I know she's on the other end of the phone. I know she's there. She's got the capacity to kind of occupy my son. That's what we'd normally do. We'd go out and we'd do certain things, and we keep ourselves busy, and we express how we're feeling, and we know that, yeah, fair enough, we've spent a couple of hours together in the evening, and it's like, and it's made me tense, or I've had a really stressful day today. All I need to do is zone out. But you're not always going to get that space. And this is why the effects, the mental health effects and impact from this here COVID-19 is, because, like you said, it's like literally all of that is built up in our environment. And we've got people that might be experiencing trauma that are now definitely like, if I wanted to go off and cry, I could do that. I could go away and my son doesn't have to see it. But now we're living in a house and we're locked down. The chances of him seeing me have a moment where I'm struggling, it's more prevalent. He's going to see it. So therefore it's going to impact him. So they do need to think about how we start kind of looking at, well, actually, how are we're not safe. And I understand he said, right, okay, we can go out a numerous amount of times, but sometimes even children need to be around other adults, because their parents aren't always the best. Sorry. And sometimes we as adults need other adults.
Yes.
Because we need a break. So you know how we spoke about we're parents, we're people too. Yes. We need a break. We need to be able to have time to just be whatever we want to be without having to worry about how that's going to affect our children. So it's just so difficult at the moment. Some of these questions I know that I'm missing, but I'm going to have a look back through, and if I pick up on anything, I saw something that's just gone up about something about needing resources and stuff. So I'll come, yep. In order to be useful, we need resources. Yeah. So, but this is it. It's again, it's about us working together. Like the capacity that we hold, as if we just look at the 15 people that are on this right now, the capacity that we hold as people that want to benefit young people out there, that can also support parents out there to support their children. And if we can work together, then surely we can put something. We can't save the world. We can't, but we can do our bit to support and protect it from maybe a little bit of further damage. Yeah. Having said that, I could go a bit skeptical and say that ultimately it's the government that needs to fix up in order to protect our kids. Yes, that's where I was secretly, Craig, what you just said there, because there's so much that we can do, but the people that have got the money, the people that have got the facilities, the people that make the policies or put procedures in place, they need to fix up. Because we are failing our young people. These young people, we look at youth violence as a public health issue, right? Another statistic I've got for you, mental health research gets 5.5% of the total health research funding every year. 5.5%. The majority of that goes into crisis. It goes into working with mental health crisis. Not much of that is going into prevention. However, mental health is the biggest burden of disease on our country. It tops cancer. It tops heart disease. Mental health is the biggest burden. Why is there not more funding going into how we can protect and prevent mental health issues, how we can protect and support young people and put in early intervention so that young people, if they do, we can't unfortunately, we can't completely stop them from experiencing traumatic situations. But if we can get in early and give them the intervention that they need, that's going to limit and lessen the effects that the trauma has on them.
Do you know what? I'm gonna be a old skeptical right now, and I think some of that's got to do with the system kind of pick up, well, supposedly deal with the. I was gonna say pick up the pieces because they all they do is kind of profiteer off it. So we look at the pharmaceutical companies, when we look at prison services, you know, privatized prison services, they're good. They don't mind. So in terms of investment, yeah, either way, yeah, those guys are still getting what they need to get in terms of the people who hold the power. Do you know what I mean? So really, really is a social justice issue. Do you know what, Nad? I'm gonna look to kind of wrap it up around about now. But listen, guys, yeah, this is a very deep, big, serious topic that we could have gone on for hours, to be fair. And we probably just scrape the barrel, not even scrape the barrel, really. You know what I mean? Of how complex this issue is. What I can say is Nadia is doing lots of great work. Follow on Instagram, Mind Our IG, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. And you can also find, is it Mind Our Mentalities on YouTube?
Yeah, Mind Our TV on YouTube. So I try to do a lot of motivational stuff. Again, we could unpick the fact that young people, and I had this conversation with the young execs about what young people are engaging with whilst they're on lockdown. So yeah, again, going back to Craig, we are quite severely impacted on the work that we do with young people at the moment, but I am trying to do my little bit to motivate young people, parents, whoever. Yeah, and that's all we can do. Do you know what I mean? We've got to. There's so much more I'd want to do, and once I sit down and process things, there might be those little steps that I can take. I like to live in the glass half full element of people, where I've got to think positively. But even if I'm very much, my mentality is, even if one person benefits from something that I do, that's it. Like, job done. I've achieved something, and I think that's kind of, it's moving forward about how we can work together. And yes, we have to be real, Craig, and we do need to think that, well, we can't help our communities to the extent that we want to. So maybe now we need to put together a group of us that look at, well, actually, if we can't do it right now, what is the route in? How are we gonna, if that door's not being opened for us, who's coming to kick it off with me? And how are we gonna kick it off?
Listen, really, for me, what is becoming clearer week by week by doing this. This is now week, is it number 5? I think it's the 5th live. Yeah. What's become apparent is the same themes keep popping up. 1, around representation. 2, representation of ethnicity, gender, these sort of things within the services. 2, real people that people can actually connect with, and more of relational work, 3, we're starting to see the beginnings of some good collaborative work starting to happen. But 4, like, I think also looking at the power of collective power, because really I'm looking at this again and I'm thinking, you know what? Let's just build this up here and actually go back. Because a lot of the organisations that I've called forward are newly start up, passionate organisations who are perhaps struggling to break through, but they're doing it because of the love and because of the passion, and the knowledge is there. So believe me, look out over the next couple of weeks. Like I said, next week we will be doing another mental health special. We'll be releasing a poster on the Monday, so look it up. And I'm hoping to get this video on YouTube over the next couple of days. All right. But listen, thank you again for joining. It's great to see some of the same faces week by week.
Thank you all for joining in. Yes, definitely. I can see. Yep, Richard. Oh, hey, Richard. my homie. Sorry, that's just like occasionally. This is me, but my son loves this silly side of me. which is
Yes.
sometimes where I have to go, because we all need to kind of laugh. But I need to go and eat some food as well.
Hear that?
So definitely. All right, it's been a pleasure.
No problem. But look after yourself, yeah? And we'll catch
You
up for a
too.
debrief in a bit, yeah? All right.
Definitely. All right,
Yeah.
take care.
Yes, sis.
Bye.
Bye bye, everyone. Speak soon. Two real